He was definitely dead, but I am not done yet. Flow acceleration. Clementine accelerated, whipped out another stiletto and stabbed it through his helmet slit. On top of that, she unleashed the fireball spell it contained. She hallucinated Mom's flesh burning up from the inside out. She felt she could smell the meat grilling. Instead, her eyes widened in shock at how wrong she was. Yggdrasil, didn't he have magical weapons like that? The more you know. As he spoke at leisure with a stiletto still sticking out of each eye, she realized there hadn't been a coincidence, that there wasn't blood on the blade when she stabbed him earlier. No way, this can't be happening. Why won't you die? She'd never heard of a martial art that made the user invincible. Was something protecting him from stabbing? Even then, how did he block the magic follow-up? Even the veteran warrior Clementine didn't know the answer. She was pulled in close. Their bodies bumped together, and her adventurer plates jangled. You want to know if you got the answer right? The raven black armor poof disappeared, revealing Mom's horrifying face. It was a skull with neither flesh nor skin. Stilettos were stabbed into both of his vacant orbits through his mirrored shades, but he didn't give any indication he was experiencing pain. That appearance rang a bell for Clementine. An undead and elder lick. Well, I sure have some questions for you, but meh. Let us just say you ray close. And then she shouldn't have been able to read an expression from a face with no skin or flesh, but she had the feeling he was wearing a wide grin. So how does it feel fighting a caster with a sword? How does it feel to not have it end with a swoop and a shunk? Don't make fun of me. Clementine struggled violently to get away, but it was as if she were bound to him by sturdy chains. She couldn't escape. An elder lick was certainly a mighty undead. They were good at using magic and so on, but they shouldn't have much in the way of physical ability. In a comparison with Clementine, she should come out on top. But why can't he get away? Her entire body went cold when she realized his incredible power and physical ability wasn't due to some magical effect in his armor. She imagined a butterfly caught in a spider's web, a helpless creature. This was the true nature of her handicap. He hadn't used magic on her because she wasn't an enemy he needed to take seriously. You piece of shit. Well, now that S revealed, let us begin after I get these out of my way. There was a dragging noise as the elder lick pulled a stiletto from his head and threw it away. Clementine was still struggling, but even one of his hands far exceeded the strength of her entire body. She couldn't budge in his embrace. Once the stilettos were gone, the sinister red flames in his empty eye sockets turned to Clementine. She was breathing irregularly as she strained against him. Okay, let us begin. Begin what? Clementine thought as the already intimate distance between her and the elder lick shrank even farther. She heard an unpleasant creaking noise. When she realized what he was trying to do, she felt as though she'd been stabbed in the back with an icicle. You aren't you can be yahoo. The noise was the shriek of her armor beginning to dent. He was trying to crush her against his chest. The elder lick should have been getting squashed against the armor as well. But he must have changed his body to be more powerful somehow. It was immovable and made her think of a thick wall. If you were weaker, the elder lick took a dagger out from somewhere. The blade was black. 4 jewels were set in the hilt. I considered ending your life with this, but I figure there's not much difference between dying on a sword, getting snapped in half, or being crushed. You ray dead no matter what. Her whole body shuddered. Throughout his commentary, the pressure was gradually increasing. A strange weight on her chest was becoming oppressive. Ping, ping. Unable to bear it, the plates of the adventurers she'd killed began popping off her armor. They fell to the graveyard ground as if they were finally being interred. The first to go were the ones she had most recently acquired. It got harder and harder to breathe. This was awful. She hated the arm wrapped around her back. She blamed herself for wearing light armor. She had wanted to increase her evasion and be able to attach the adventurer plates. Having learned that swords had no effect on the elder lick, she began beating his face with her fists. She was half crazed. She was hitting so hard she was hurting herself, but she wasn't at leisure to feel the pain. Then she drew her morning star and began frantically pounding with that. But she couldn't do it right and only ended up wounding herself. It was easy to imagine the fate that awaited her. The choking breaths, the weight on her chest, and her breaking armor made it clear what would happen. Don't struggle so much. If the position of my arm slips, it will end too simply. You took your time killing them, so I want to take my time on you too. Clementine desperately continued her attacks. She tried pushing off of his head with her hand, scratching at him until her nails peeled back and biting him with her front teeth. None of it worked. and the pressure continued increasing. No matter how much she flailed, there was no escaping the jaws that were his arms. She still fought. Even as her breathing grew more difficult and her field of vision began to shrink, she fought for the chance to survive. La Danse Macabre, she couldn't even spare the effort to hear that quiet remark. There was a gurgling sound, and Aints was splashed with vomit and filth. Something dark flashed through the red flames in his vacant orbits. Clementine, who had flailed and tried so desperately to escape, had devolved into something that could only convulse. But Aints didn't let up. He increased the pressure. On the contrary, Aints felt the crack of a thick bone snapping against his arm. He let go of a body that was no longer even twitching. Clementine's corpse fell to the graveyard ground with a thud, like a bag of garbage. Her face looked ghastly, distorted by pain and fear. Her innards were poking out of her mouth, like a deep-sea fish that had been reeled in all at once. As Aints took out his bottomless pitcher of water to wash the vomit and filth from his body with its endless stream of fresh water, he spoke quietly to Clementine, who could no longer reply. "Oh, I forgot to tell you I am extremely self-centered." Shrinking from his clothes that were sopping wet after their cleansing, Aints sensed that something large was scampering his way. When he looked, it was Hamusuk, as he thought. Hamusuk's combat ability was far inferior to Aints' or Narbral's. He had her stand by a little ways away, so she wouldn't get hurt if he forced her to fight. Apparently she had come out once she could no longer hear battle noises. Aints was a little depressed. He was able to read the subtle change in expression, concerned for her master's safety, on the super-giant hamster's cute face. Having no idea her master was feeling that way, the giant hamster ran over surprisingly quickly and scanned the area. When her eyes met Aints' leg, she keeled over belly up and continued shouting, "There is some kind of crazy monster here that there is. Mastra. Steeped in the torment of full-body weariness, Aints held his head. Now that he thought of it, he had never shown Hamusuk his real face, but he couldn't leave it like this. When he looked out at the wall in the distance, he saw some adventurers battling his wraiths. He wanted to think they couldn't be overheard at this distance, but he couldn't say for sure. "This is like a bad comedy routine. Would you cut it out?" Aints scolded in his dignified tone. "Oh, that magnificent, valiant voice, could it be you, my master, are you not? Yes, so could you keep it down? What? Your appearance is far different from my most wild imaginings. I thought you possessed great power, but now I will be even more loyal to you that I will. Aha. More importantly, I'll say it again, keep it down. Master, you are so mean that you are. I would like that you not dismiss my oath of devotion so casually that I would. Did you not hear what Lord Aints just said, you fool?" A dent appeared in Hamusuk, and she went flying. Where she'd been standing up until a moment before, Narbral was slowly lowering her foot. "Lord Aints, I don't believe there is value in keeping such a stupid creature. May I grill her with lightning? Don't she is quite valuable to us in terms of reputation if we use her as the wise king of the forest. Even just taking her around with us live is beneficial. More importantly, Narbral, we don't have much time. Start looting these guys. Assuming the peacekeepers in the city will request us to turn everything in, we need to check for valuables first. Understood. I am going into the mausoleum. I'll leave the cleanup to you. My lord, what shall I do with the corpses? Will we take them to Nazareth? No, we need to point to them as the masterminds behind this incident. Just strip their gear. Understood. It hurts that it does. Narbral heaved an exaggerated sigh and sent Hamusuk, who had returned, a chilly glare. Pay more attention to anything Lord Aints says than your entire existence. That is the duty of a minion. Even a creature like you counts as a minion barely, so keep that in mind. If you don't, I'll promptly kill you. Hamusuk shivered. Next time I'll punish you with magic, not a physical attack. In accordance with Lord Aints' wishes, I'll cause as much pain as I can without killing you. I understand that I do. Please don't look at me with such a scary face that I ask. But I am astonished by our master's new and powerful appearance that I am. How magnificent. Narbral's expression softened just a bit. Yeah, Lord Aints is truly wonderful to behold. If you understand that you might have a pretty good eye, I thank you that I do. But if our master has a true form, do you have another form as well? I am a doppelganger. I just changed my face. See, She took off her gauntlet to reveal a hand with only 3 fingers. They were longer than human fingers and looked just like inchworms. Oh, I didn't know that I did not. Why are you surprised? You are a part of the great tomb of Nazarick as one of its lowest class minions now, so you can let a little thing like that shock you. More importantly, why don't you help me loot these corpses? Yes, ma am, that I will. Enfira was inside the mausoleum. When Ain't saw him, the red sparkles in his orbits grew dark. He was wearing some strangely transparent garments, but what Ain't was looking at was his face. A cut had been made straight across it. Trails of hardened blood, like reddish-black tears, showed that his eyes under their lids had been sliced. It was clear he had been blinded. Well, blindness I can fix. Magic is so handy. The bigger problem was his mental condition. He was standing stiff as a rod and hadn't reacted to Ain's presence. Even if he couldn't see, he should have been able to tell if someone was standing right in front of him. Since he didn't it meant he was being mind-controlled. The question was how. It has to be this. Ain't was looking at the spiderweb-like circlet around Enfira's head. There was nothing more suspicious around. He casually reached out to remove it, but stopped. Interfering before he understood what had caused this state was too risky. He faced the circlet and used a spell. Appraise any magic item. In Yggdrasil, the spell would tell who made an item and what it did. It worked in this world as well. Actually, it worked even better. Things he never would have learned in Yggdrasil popped into his head. A crown of wisdom I see. But considering what it does, this couldn't exist in Yggdrasil. I guess it couldn't be reproduced there. He commented, impressed after acquiring general knowledge about the item. Then, he thought about what to do next. The most important thing he considered was the argument for taking Enfira to the great tomb of Nazarick just as he was. Getting control of a rare item and a rare talent was huge. But he only wavered for a moment. Deliberately failing at a job I already undertook would be a disgrace to the name of Ain's Ool Gown. Crumble away greater break item. Ain's spell shot at the circlet. It crumbled elegantly into innumerable tiny sparkles. He gently caught the boy as he slumped over. Then he carefully laid him down and looked at his face. All that's left is to fix his eyes. I guess it would be better to do that somewhere else, though. Stroking his bony chin, Ain't stood up. The undead he summoned hadn't been wiped out, but some of them had been destroyed. There was no doubt reinforcements, the meddlers, would reach this place at some point. He had to recast his illusion and recreate his armor and swords before that happened. And they had to finish looting. Ain't experienced a dark joy in the simple act of robbing all of a corpse's gear at once. This hadn't been possible when player killing in Yggdrasil. As he thought to go help Nabril with that, she appeared at the entrance to the mausoleum with perfect timing. Lord Ain't, what is it? Did you take all their stuff, money too? Yes, it's about that. I found this. Nabril went into the mausoleum. She was clutching a black orb. It wasn't a very nice-looking stone. It seemed like the type of rock one could find on the shore of a river. It certainly didn't look valuable. What is it? It seemed very important to the hammerhead worm I was fighting. I don't know what it does. I see Nabril, the NPC, didn't know as many spells as Ain't. Most of her spells were for combat, so she couldn't appraise the item. Ain't took it and used the same spell as before. Appraise any magic item. The red sparks in his eyes burned brilliantly. What is this? A jewel of death, and it's an intelligent item, for having such a grandiose name being of death, and all it wasn't such a fancy item. It augmented the user's ability to control undead. It also allowed them to cast a number of ghost magic spells so many times per day. Neither of these powers held much fascination for Ain't. The downside was that it could control a human possessing it. But Ain't and Nabril were protected against mind control, and the jewel couldn't control subhumans or grotesques anyhow. This is a pretty meh item, but there was one thing about it that interested Ain't, and that was that it was intelligent. When he poked it as if telling it to speak, a voice echoed in his mind. We meet for the first time, O great king of death. Ain't stared at the stone. This world had magic and monsters, so he wasn't surprised something like this existed. You really are intelligent, huh? He deftly rolled the stone in his hand and then stared at it again, but it didn't seem like it was going to say anything. He wondered what the deal was, but then he had an idea. I permit you to speak. I humbly thank you, O great king of death. That response reminded him of the ardent devotion of the Nazarick NPCs, and Ain't smiled faintly. I revere and worship your majesty's presence of absolute death. Aints was pretty sure he had all his auras turned off, so why was this item calling him the king of death? Considering Aints was undead, he figured it was flattery at best. Go ahead, thank you, being of profound death. I thank all death that exists in this world that I should get to meet you, whom I worship. For brown-nosing, those were pretty serious words. Despite feeling self-conscious, Aints puffed out his chest. And do you have anything to say besides flattery? Yes, I am deeply aware how impertinent it is of me, but please, I beg that you would grant my wish. What is it? I always thought I was born into this world to bestow death upon large numbers of people. But now that I have met you, O great King of Death, I realize the true reason I was born into this world to serve you, your majesty. O great King of Death, please accept my loyalty, and I humbly request that your majesty count me among the lowliest of your faithful servants. It was a sincere voice. Had the jewel had a head, it surely would have been bowed low. Aints curled his right hand and placed it near his mouth while he thought about whether he should make it one of his subordinates or not, about whether he could trust it or not. After a time, he slowly returned his gaze to the item. To be safe, he should destroy the orb, but it seemed like a waste to destroy any more things that hadn't existed in Yggdrasil. After casting some defensive spells on the orb, he went to the entrance of the mausoleum and called out to the giant hamster. Hamusuk, master, what is it? I am giving this to you. Aints tossed the orb. Hamusuk nimbly caught it. Master, what in the world is this? It is a magic item. Can you use it? HRM. It seems I can, that it does, but how noisy it is. It clamors to be returned to you, master, it does. Seeing Hamusuk like that, Nabral's eyes grew wide. You would bestow it on a newcomer? Her slightly shrill voice showed how shocked she was. I took some precautions against detection magic, but I can say for sure that it is 100% safe. That is why I am having Hamusuk hold on to it. Aha, brilliant as usual, Lord Aints. Not careless even for a moment, you make another admirable judgment call. Nabral indicated she understood. And Hamusuk, with a lump in her cheek pouch slightly smaller than a human fist, made a dignified bow. As Aints was giving the two of them the order to withdraw, the red of his cape caught his eye. Feeling a bit playful, he grabbed the edge of it. Once you done looting, let us take in fire. He flourished his cape and make our triumphant return. Epilogue. Aints pushed open the door of the inn where they stayed the other day. The place was instantly swallowed by perfect silence. Countless eyes were on him and Nabral, but no one got in their way. They stood before the innkeeper. Both his and the guests' eyes were all on the plates hanging from their necks. Aints made it short and nonchalant. A room for two, he smirked. He tossed down the coins and silently took the key from the innkeeper. Then they went to their room where Aints cancelled all of his magic and returned to his true form. His mithril plate emitted a bright ring when it clinked against his Nemean lion. Up until just a bit ago, they'd been at the guild being debriefed about the previous day's incident. They'd been hurriedly awarded the plates there. It went without saying that the silence in the inn had been caused by the plates. If a guy who arrived just a few days ago with a copper plate came back the next time with a mithril plate, it probably felt like he'd demolished the common sense they'd been building up all their careers. Their raw reactions did give him a sense of superiority, but he was also dissatisfied. He was expecting they'd skip him all the way to Orichalcum, and instead he got one below that. How would everyone have reacted if his plate had been Orichalcum? Well, there was still a chance. There were still very few people who knew about the incident, and according to what he heard during his debriefing, their achievements were unbelievable and really worthy of adamantite plates. The only reason they hadn't been given those was because they had no previous accomplishments. The guild wanted to err on the side of caution, since the investigation was still incomplete. In other words, internally at the guild, they were viewed as adamantite rank adventurers. There were only 2 teams like that in the entire kingdom. He expected that, over time, the story of the fight in the graveyard and the name Momon would be known all over town. The guards who survived would surely talk. Everything was going according to his plan, and he chuckled to himself. It was more than a smooth start, it was perfect. Aints tapped his mithril plate with a finger. Then Nabral spoke up, curious. What are you going to do with those 2? You said you would contact them later about the reward, right? She meant Enfira and Lizzie, the 2 apothecaries. Aints had already decided how to handle them. Lizzie said she would give me everything, so I am planning to have her take her grandson and go to Khan. I'll force them to make potions for me, no, for the great tomb of Nazarick. Nazarick has ways to make potions. Why make those penis fish do it? What I am after is new ways to make potions. Narbarrel looked at him without reacting, so Aints explained, developing ways to create potions that didn't exist in Yggdrasil is important. We need to work on this, keeping in mind that our potion ingredients 1T last forever.